What's up, y'all? It's Silent. Back with some more information uh, for today. Peace to the ladies. Peace to the fellas as well. Um, Today, I'm gonna be speaking a little bit on dimensions. Now, what are dimensions? Right now, when you heard me say it, and you heard a lot of other people talk about dimensions. What are dimensions? Dimensions is basically different perceptions of reality, right? So, perception can be perceived by a person, right? Or perception can be what it is. It just exists, right? So, from another person, it's not a perception, it's the real thing, right? But your perception can make you believe that something what it is, right? Or what something ain't, right? But then you have things that are already here. It already exists, right? So when you get in to like a two dimension, that's the square, right? Off the 90-degree angle, that's the square, right? That's not where you want to be at, right? Because everything is existing on a solid surface, right? So we know that the square has four corners, or 4 points, you would say. So if you are walking the square, that means you walk in the four corners, right? But you stand inside of that box, right? Eventually, you're going to have to get outside of that box in order for you to ascend to your higher self, right? Some of us don't know how to ascend. So some of us are staying inside of that box. We don't know how to get out of it because we don't know how to step out of that square, right? We don't know how to ascend in other levels than what we are at right now, right? Because when you speak on the third dimension, the third dimension is the square, right? But now you call it a cube, right? So what makes it different from the square is that it has more faces, but it's still a part of the square. Okay, so now that you add the faces to the square, and now we call it the cube, this is what we call a third dimension, right? So now you're in the third dimension. So now you experiencing life on a third dimension while being in a two-dimensional reality, right? So then what happens is now you add another cube to the equation. Now you have a fourth dimension. So now you could be seeing life in a fourth dimension while being in the third dimension, the three dimension, right? This is how it works. At the end of the day, you still gonna see the cubes or the squares of the cubes, right? But you can exist above the physical surface, right, of which you perceive the world to be. So as you seeing the cube, right, you seeing a world within a world, right? So when you looking into the fourth dimension, you seeing the two dimension, you seeing the three dimension, and you seeing the fourth at the same time. You seeing a world within a world. This is what you are seeing. A lot of us people, a lot of us are stuck. Like I say, we stuck on this two dimension or on this third dimension. We stuck on that. We don't know how to ascend past that because of our perception. Our perception is what makes us believe that the way of the world is just the way it is. This is why a lot of the shit that people say out their mouths, they're unaware of. Because they're not thinking from a spiritual aspect. They thinking from a physical human aspect. This is how they believe. Right? So when bad things, right, happen in their life, they don't look at it as like, okay, I'm being tested by the universe, or this is just a setback for me to get to another phase of my life. They don't look at it like that. They look at it like, oh, this is just the worst that can happen. Nothing good gonna happen. This it. Right? Because they thinking as a human. Right? They thinking as a physical being. They not thinking as a spiritual being. Right? They still stuck on the third dimension. They still stuck here. They stuck. They can't get out of it. Right? They can't see past the bullshit. Right? This is why when you pay attention to people that are so-called alone or introverted, people make you think that being introverted and being alone is a bad thing. But being introverted and being alone is not a bad thing. It's actually the right thing to do. Because if you try to spend the rest of your life trying to mingle in with people and trying to be liked by people, your life is never going to be fulfilled. And your purpose and your journey in life. That's why, like, it had to be like that for me. I had to separate myself from the rest of the world for me to learn myself. Because at the end of the day, people think that because you know people and you have friends, then that means that you are important. Right? But that's only from a physical aspect. From a spiritual aspect, you are already important. You bring something into this life that is supposed to get people out of their own comfort zones and out of their own ways of thinking, so they can be their best selves. That's what you bring. You ain't put here to be comfortable and to be friends with motherfuckers, because once you start to know who you is, ain't nobody gonna want to be your friend anyway, because they ain't gonna understand the shit that you know. So it's not gonna work. Right? So this why it's important when you speak it on dimensions, it's all perception. Your perception is what is the dimension. Your dimension is built off the perception. So for my whole life, right? For my whole life, I never thought like those who was around me. I always felt like it was more to life than what everybody else felt. I always felt that way. I just couldn't put a finger on it because I didn't have the knowledge of it, of why I felt this way. But it was just a desiring feeling that was in me that made me really think differently of the world and people and how we should react to situations. Right? The system designs us, right, and educates us to look at life as, okay, I have to react to everything. I have to be perfect. If I don't have a college degree or if I don't have a job, then my life is basically nothing. It's worthless. I don't bring anything to society. That's how they want you to think. But at the same time, the education that they giving you is not even sacred education. It's not divine education. Because you don't know nothing about who you really is. It's easy for you to know how to count, but if you understand the power of the numbers that you counting over, then that's when you doing something different. Because I already told you about the numbers and what they mean from a spiritual aspect. I already told you that. That's why they got you counting. So you can go over the power of the number. Because they want you looking at everything from what? A third dimensional aspect. They don't want you looking at nothing from a higher spiritual aspect. They don't want you looking at that like that. Right? So this is why your whole reality and the way you look at things is the way it is. Because of what you've been taught, how you was brought up. Right? And this is what designs your perception to be the way it is. Right? Because some people out here are making like they spiritual and making like they know what's going on, but they still thinking like a human. They're not thinking like a spiritual being. They still thinking like a human. Right? And the reason why they still thinking like a human is because they not spiritual. They just want to believe that they spiritual. Right Hayes called it ego woke. So their ego got them thinking that they woke and they got all the answers, but in reality they don't know shit. Right? So you got a lot of people out here, right, think they got the game, think they know what's going on, they got the knowledge of, oh yeah, they know the truth, but they still thinking as humans. You have to fully submit, right, to the spiritual essence of who you are. You have to submit, surrender. You have to give up everything that you believe in this lifetime from a physical aspect for you to ascend. You have to give up everything. The way you look at yourself, the way you look at your family, the way you look at how everything is structured around you. You have to give up all that and realize that you are just experiencing this from a physical aspect. Because like I say, if you are in the fourth dimension, mentally, you still experiencing life from a third dimensional reality. Right? Because you still here on earth. You tied to the physical plane. Right? So mentally, you in a different dimension. Right? But from a reality standpoint, you still on the third dimensional surface. Right? So this is why it's important also for you to focus on your chakras. Focus on aligning your energy properly, right? So you don't get caught up in the bullshit reality down here. Right? Because we talk about, man, we got to get out the system. Getting out the system is getting out your own motherfucking mind. Your own illusions of what you think of yourself and what you think of the world around you. That's how you get out the system. Because if you learn who you are and know what you are made of and what you are here to do, the system can't control you. Because you gonna already know what's going on. Right? This the same as what they was telling you in the movie The Matrix. You remember Neo? He was able to see through the codes. So he was seeing through different dimensions. So he was able to see the third dimension. He was able to see the 2 dimension. He was able to see the 4th dimension. That's why he knew the codes. Because he was able to see through the dimensions. He was able to see through the illusions. That's why. That's why he knew the codes. Right? So, it's all off of perception in which you perceive everything to be. This is what makes the dimensions. This is what makes them. Right? A lot of people, like I say, a lot of people are not aware of where they are. A lot of people are unaware of who they are. And a lot of people don't know that everything that is around them is all a illusion. It's all built off of their perception and what they believe. Right? That's what it's all built off of, what you believe and what you think. If something seems real to you, it's gonna be real to you. If something don't seem real to you, it ain't gonna be real to you. If you believe that most things in this life are illusion, everything or most of the things that you believe is a illusion gonna seem like an illusion to you, because this is the way you are thinking, right? But the more you start to question your reality, and the more you start to question things about yourself, right, you gonna start shifting paradigms and dimensions. You gonna start shifting because you starting to question what the average person don't question, right? And once you start to question what the average person don't question, this is when you gonna start getting clues and information that's gonna be placed into your head because of you questioning things, right? So this is what we talking about when you talking about dimensions, right? It's all going off of your own belief and what you feel and what you perceive things to be. It's what it's all going off. Right? Everything is built off a perception. That's what everything is built off of. A perception. What do you perceive something to be? Do you believe that there is a God, meaning one person that is responsible for all of our lives, that's responsible for us dying or living? Do you believe that? If you believe that, then your reality is going to be centered around religion, because you believe that there's somebody that's higher than what you are. If you believe that you are God and death is not real, death is just a illusionary state of mind, then that's what it's going to be. You're going to have that understanding because this is what you are telling yourself. But morally, this is what you're seeing from your own godlike understanding. That's just what it is. You know? And a lot of people just don't have, a lot of people just don't understand it. They don't have that understanding or that knowing, because they just too stuck on the bullshit. They stuck down here, right? Because for most people, some of them may just be a lost cause to where they ain't gonna never figure it out. That's just how it is for some people, because they just too caught up in it. They too caught up in what's going on in the physical world. They too caught up. They can't get out of it. Shit is still exciting to them on the physical aspect, right? People think that, like I talked about, being in solitude and being to yourself and introverted. A lot of people think that's easy to do, just being by yourself. That's not easy to do, being by yourself. Because when you are by yourself, this is when you are in your own thoughts. Right? Meaning the things that you used to do, that you remember, all that shit gonna come to your mind, and it may play on your mind as a negative, right? And once these negatives play on your mind, you gotta find a way to not make them feel like a negative to you no more. So this is when you talk about shadow work. Working on the side of yourself that you perceive as the real you, but it was just a shadow. It was just a mirror, right? Trying to block you from achieving the understanding of who you really are. right? That's what it is, right? So, um, when you sit by yourself and you in your own thoughts, this is when you get an opportunity to learn yourself. Most of us don't get that opportunity because we too caught up in the bullshit. So when you have that opportunity at hand for you to learn yourself and be in your own space, you got to take that as a blessing in some cases, because sometimes that don't happen for everybody. Some people may not get that opportunity, right? Because then once you get that opportunity to be in your own space, now your perception of what you think of yourself and what you think of people in the world around you gonna change, because you gonna start to learn more things, right? Most people perception of the way they perceive the world is because they too into the world. That's why their perception is so poor, because they too into the world. They too into shit. They don't know how to distance themselves, right? Because one of the main things that it keep you stuck down here mentally is fear. You know, your mama always be, man, this world crazy. Oh, you gotta watch yourself. People out here killing people. See, that's the bullshit. That's what's keeping you stuck on the third dimension. Because you got this fear developing in your mind that a motherfucker out here trying to kill you. Ain't nobody ever threatened your life ever, but just because you watching some shit on TV and they talking about niggas out here killing, you think, oh yeah, motherfuckers out here killing, but you don't even know. They could just be putting that out to scare people, right? But had you had your own intelligence and known something about yourself, you wouldn't even look at that and get offended by it or allow it to have control in your life, because you already know what it is. It's some bullshit. But since you don't know who you are and you don't have an understanding of the world around us, you believe in the bullshit. Right? So now that knocks you back down to this human shit. Being a fucking human. Being afraid of everything. Thinking that somebody out to get you. Well, they ain't got nothing to do with that. They just trying to keep you in your lower state. That's all they trying to do. That's their whole main goal, is to get you to think like a human. Right? So, this is why you have to understand and realize the science of how all this shit works. Right? In order for you to ascend, like I said, you have to change your perception. That's the only way you're going to ascend, is when you change your perception and the way you look at life and the way you look at things. That's the only way. Because when you start to question everything, that's when you in the fourth dimension. Because remember I told you, that's why you seeing a world within another world, right? So you seeing beyond the physical aspect of life. You seeing beyond that. So that's you in the fourth dimension, right? Because remember, they call the fourth dimension the mother plane, right? So that means you going into your heart energy. That's feminine. So when you tap into your heart energy, right, this is what allows your conscious mind to expand, right, beyond, like I said, the physical surface of what you perceive everything to be. Once you open your heart. If you don't open your heart, you ain't gonna be able to see beyond the bullshit. You know. So this is what you're getting. Right? The thing about it is, once you start to ascend within your own mind, you gonna start to realize that just life shit and what you perceive life to be is more than, like I say, a illusion or a imagination. Whatever you think, whatever you believe, is what your life will become. Right? Like we talk about, I came back here. I was reincarnated. You designed your life to be the way it is, right? In order for you to ascend into the person you were meant to be, right? So if your life has things in it that are challenging, right? But they kind of, in some case, make sense to your personality and to who you are. This is how you know you design your life to be the way it is, right? Because it makes sense to who you are. You ain't gonna design your life to where it don't make sense to who you is, because your energy aligns with the lifestyle that you chose, right? Like when we speak on as above, so below. The whole idea of as above, so below is you coming from the ethers and coming down here and balancing your energy with earth and then aligning it with the ethers. This is why we say as above, so below. Right? So you aligning your energies together from a physical aspect and then from a etheric aspect to become the person that you are destined to be. Right? So your life is going to have some challenges, some ups and downs, and some obstacles. Right? That's because you balancing energies here on earth. Because the same way it is down here ain't going to necessarily be the same way it is up there. But you can make it that way by you balancing off the energies and finding one common solution to who you is and what you doing. Right? So, this is what you doing down here. Once you gain the understanding of your life and why your life is structured the way it is, you gonna know what you here to do. Right? And a lot of us, we get caught up in this life and we lose the interest in what we here to do, and we just settle for the life that we have. Rather than just realizing, okay, what's outside of this life? What more to this life can I find or achieve? Right? That's what Ryan Hayes talked about. Right? Because a lot of us get comfortable in the lives that we have. And we don't want to do nothing to change the life that we have because we too comfortable with it. But if the life that you have is not bringing you any spiritual meaning or development, then you may need to change it. Right? Because it's not helping you overall. Right? So you may need to shift your perception and shift your thought process and the way you perceive things in order for you to become the highest version of yourself. Right? And like I say, these are the things that us as people, we have a trouble with because we've been so caught up with the bullshit down here. Right? So it's hard for some of us to do that. Right? But this is why I talk about your chakras and aligning the energies properly, right? So you can be able to understand that science, right? So, yeah, your perception, like I say, is everything. You have to change it. You have to see through the bullshit. It's not gonna happen overnight. Your energy has to be able to fully understand life at all counts. And once you get to that point, this is when you have the understanding of the world around you and of who you are. Right? So, yeah. This is just some quick information I wanted to drop on that. I'm going to have some more information on this topic. I'm probably going to make a post later on today. So, that being said, this is Silent. I'm out. Peace.